I'm in the big leagues, told her don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh, send it through quickly. I'm making hits, dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding the road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now, so I need that go, y'all. Got hits when he throwin' the fastball, just too quick for it. Peeling off like the whip orange. Seen they effort, this piss poor. I got too much, I gotta tend to.
What it do, baby? Welcome back. We are back, y'all. Season 2 of Another Turnover. We here. We up in this thing. It's been a minute. I missed y'all. I missed y'all a lot. It's been a while since I've been able to talk hoops in this setting, in my podcast setting. The last episode was what? NBA Finals when Milwaukee Bucks took the chip. So I'm excited to be back. I'm excited to have y'all on, and I'm looking forward to a fantastic, wonderful season 2. So let me get into a little bit about some of the changes that we're going to be doing for season 2. So obviously, if you're watching and seeing me, you know your boy's on YouTube now. YouTube official. You can see my face and everything. So I hope I look all right. I hope I look presentable. But we are going to be on YouTube for season 2, in addition to our traditional podcast formats on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But now, season 2, the thing I'm most excited about, we're going to have 2 episodes a week. So in addition to our standard Friday shows that we're going to be doing, I am also going to be doing an episode on Tuesdays as well. So the goal, keep in mind, is Tuesday and Friday of every week, 30 minutes or less for podcast episodes. So I am greatly looking forward to a fantastic and wonderful season. I'm hoping to have episodes posted by 9 o'clock Central Time is the goal. But we'll see how it goes. If I need to change things up, I'll change things up. And, if I can get suggestions for y'all to, for me to implement new stuff, let me know. I got an open door. You can reach out to me. But I am excited to get into some basketball. As y'all know, obviously, if you're watching the podcast, I love to talk all things hoops, all things NBA. So let's get into it. So a lot has changed since the Milwaukee Bucks, took the championship back in July. So there's a few things that happened over the summer that I kind of want to get into. This coming Tuesday will be the 19th, when the actual NBA season starts. So I'll get into kind of some preview stuff and all that good stuff on Tuesday. So make sure you watch Tuesday's episode. But I kind of want to get into some of the things that happened this summer as far as changes with free agency and trades and off-season moves. So let's do that. Let's talk about that right now. So what were the things that went on this summer, the changes that are going to be going into the 2021-2022 NBA season? So let's talk about my favorite team. And by favorite team, I mean the team that I love to hate, that I love to give a hard time to all of their fans because their fans annoy me. The Los Angeles Lakers. So let's talk about what happened with the Lakers, because they made some moves. Obviously, the biggest move that the Lakers made was adding Russell Westbrook to their roster. So they traded Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Montrezl Harrell, Kyle Kuzma, and a first-round draft pick to get Russell Westbrook and 2 second-round picks in the future. In addition to the Russell Westbrook trade, the Lakers also signed a lot of veterans. It seemed as if it was a vets-only, free agency summer for the Los Angeles Lakers. Pretty much, if you wasn't 35 or older, you probably wasn't going to get signed. So they signed LeBron's, one of LeBron's banana boat buddies, Carmelo Anthony from, the Portland Trail Blazers. They got Kent Bazemore, Trevor Ariza, Wayne Ellington, and brought back Dwight Howard for the 3rd time. So Dwight with his 3rd stint in Los Angeles. But they also added a couple young guns who I personally think were their best signings. Malik Monk, former guard for the Charlotte Hornets, and Kendrick Nunn, former guard for the Miami Heat. So the Lakers reloaded. They made some moves after a disappointing, I would say, season last year. Obviously, Lakers were injured. LeBron was dealing with some injuries going into the playoffs. You had Anthony Davis, who had some significant injuries where, tried to come out and play against Phoenix in that, what was that, I believe Game 6 that they had in Los Angeles, but, he ain't had it. I mean, he was injured, and injuries happen. So the Lakers were obviously the favorite, or I should say one of the favorites last year. So they reloaded. But the question is, do these moves, I should say, make the Lakers better? I mean, adding Russell Westbrook, like, how is the trio, the big three of Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis, how are they going to coexist? Are they going to mesh? Are they not going to mesh? In my personal opinion, I mean, the cynic in me, I'm like, yeah, this is great. LeBron typically needs shooters, and Russell Westbrook can't shoot that well. So I think it's going to work out great. But all kidding aside, I do feel as if this trade would not have happened for Los Angeles if, LeBron, Russ, and even Anthony Davis as well didn't come up with, some sort of scheme or make a commitment to coexist and use their abilities in the best way that they can. So yeah, Russell Westbrook's not a great shooter, but he's a pretty solid point guard. He's one of the better guard finishers at the rim. Defense leaves to be a little bit to be, desired, which, they could run into some issues because a lot of the vets that they sign, defenses, it could be better. I could see this working out to a certain degree for the Lakers. I mean, like, I'm biased. So, I mean, I'm not picking them to win the chip. We'll get into that in a future episode. I'm not picking them to win the chip with this roster as currently constructed. I could see it working enough to where, Lakers, they'll more than likely be a top 4 seed in the West. But, picking them as the ones who are going to come out of the West, I mean, West is kind of stacked. I mean, Phoenix, pretty much brought back everybody else. Utah is going to be better. I would say they're going to be improved. You've got Golden State, who's going to get Klay Thompson back. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Golden State, saying that, their championship window is done. But I feel like, obviously that core of Steph, Draymond, and Klay is battle tested. So they're going to be back. Denver's going to be better. You got Michael Porter Jr. on the come up. They just had, the MVP and Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray's going to be coming back off an ACL injury. So, I mean, and that's just to name a few. The Clippers, when Kawhi Leonard comes back, the West is stacked. So I wouldn't put the Lakers as the clear-cut favorite in the West, even with Russell Westbrook. So, because I really don't know how this is going to work out, and what game plan they're going to have. But obviously, they're all smarter than I am. I'm just a fan who likes to talk about basketball. So, I mean, it is what it is. But some other things happened over the summer, in NBA free agency with trades and all that good stuff. Let's go over to the East. So let's talk about the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat, they made some pretty significant moves. They added point guard from Toronto Raptors, Kyle Lowry, in a sign and trade. They also added PJ Tucker, Markieff Morris, and Victor Oladipo on a really, really cheap deal. With him coming off an injury, a pretty significant one from last season. But arguably, I would say Miami probably had the best offseason. I think the moves that they made kind of make them a legitimate contender in the Eastern Conference. Now, barring, health, say everybody's healthy, no one should beat Brooklyn. Brooklyn is the clear favorite, and not just the Eastern Conference, but the entire league as a whole. So I wouldn't say, obviously, they're better than Brooklyn, but can this, reloaded Miami Heat team compete with Milwaukee? I think so. I mean, I would say that they're arguably better than Boston. We all know the situation that's going on in Philly, which we're going to get to here in just a little bit. But are they, better than Philadelphia? Probably. I definitely see this Miami Heat team competing with the pieces that they got. They've got an excellent leader in Jimmy Butler. Their big man Bam Adebayo is one of the better bigs in the league. I would probably put him, top 5, top 6 big in the NBA right now. But Miami Heat have a very gritty culture, and they've always been able to do a really good job of getting their players to buy in. They still got Udonis Haslem on the bench. I know he just turned like 68, 69 the other day, but he's still on the bench collecting a check. So Udonis, I ain't mad at you for that. But they've always had a culture of grit, and I think that's going to show up well, with Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry. So Miami, like I said, I think they probably have had the best offseason in terms of the acquisitions that they made. But one of the sleepers out east that I feel also had a very good summer were the Chicago Bulls. Last time the Chicago Bulls were relevant was when old GOAT Jordan was there in 1998. So it's been a while since Chicago has had real championship aspirations. Not saying that they weren't good when Derrick Rose was there a few years back. Don't get me wrong, but let's face it, they haven't had a realistic shot at a chip since 1998, Jordan's last year in Chicago. But they made some pretty good moves. They added Lonzo Ball. They got DeMar DeRozan from the Spurs in a sign and trade, and added Alex Caruso, a very popular figure from the Los Angeles Lakers, and added Derrick Jones Jr. So they added some really, really solid pieces. I think they are going to be a sleeper team in the East. I definitely think that Chicago, with this unit, will make it back to the playoffs. This team with Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine is one of my favorite players. I feel as if he is underrated. A lot of people feel like he's rated, exactly where he's supposed to be, but I think people sleep on Zach LaVine. I think with this unit that they have, I think they've got a legitimate, shot at making the playoffs. I could see them being 5th, maybe 6th seed here in the Eastern Conference. Shoot, maybe even 4th seed. I mean, the Knicks made the 4th seed last year. Nobody saw that coming. And I feel as if this Chicago Bulls team is better than the New York Knicks team from last year. But this crew should definitely, I would say, make the playoffs. Chicago has done a really good job this summer. So I feel as if they had a really good summer. So don't sleep on the Chicago Bulls. You heard it here first. But like I mentioned just a little bit ago, overall, I think the Miami Heat, in terms of acquisitions and free agency, had the best summer. How soon we forget that the Miami Heat went to the finals in the bubble just last season for the 2020 finals, losing to the Los Angeles Lakers in 6 games. But like I mentioned, they've had consistent leadership. You've had your Jimmy Butler as your on-court leader. I got to shout out Eric Spoelstra. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the NBA. He's done a phenomenal job. But then you've got the top leadership with Pat Riley. And Pat Riley, he always has his players ready to go and bought into the system and the culture that they have. They got a good mix of veteran talent. They've got a lot of young talent as well. I am expecting for Tyler Hero to have a bounce-back season because his sophomore slump pretty much lasted the whole year. So the whole season was a slump for Tyler Hero. So I definitely see them competing in the East. I don't think it'd be a shock to say, top 3 for Miami. Like I said, I wouldn't say that they're better than Brooklyn, but they have a legitimate shot of contending in the Eastern Conference with the Brooklyns and with the Milwaukees in the Eastern Conference. So, but all that to say, let's transition a little bit. Let's talk about some of the biggest stories so far of this NBA summer. And I think y'all know where I gotta start. I gotta start with my guy Ben Simmons. So we talked about Ben Simmons a lot last season, during the playoffs. He had his epic collapse too harsh? I hope that's not too harsh, but he pretty much had an epic collapse in that series against Atlanta in the conference semifinals. Wouldn't shoot the ball, wouldn't drive to the basket. He had that infamous play where he had a clear dunk over 5'6" Trae Young and passed it, to Tybalt, and they only ended up getting 1 free throw. He was, like I mentioned on, last season, if you remember, he was kind of psyched out. And Ben Simmons, I didn't even know how I was looking at. I felt bad for him. But reports all summer were rampant about him never wanting to play in Philly. He don't want to come back. He feels like, Philly threw him on the bus for the playoff loss. And, he pretty much asked for a trade. He's like, hey, I want to get traded, preferably somewhere in California. But, I don't want to be here no more. So, like that Magic Johnson meme, I'm not going to be here. But Doc Rivers, the head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, even went on First Take and it seemed like he was kind of doing damage control. Y'all misconstrued what I said. I didn't mean that we couldn't win a championship with Ben. I just meant I didn't know in that moment. So I wasn't, trying to cast any aspersions. But he basically went on First Take on ESPN and trying to do damage control, which I feel like didn't really help matters at all. But, that's a story for another day. But that's kind of been the whole thing. Like, hey, like Ben Simmons has put out through his camp, like he don't want to come back. He ain't talked to nobody. None of the Sixers players. They reached out to him multiple times, and he didn't want nothing to do with that. But earlier, just this week, fast forward a little bit. So that's pretty much been the story. Ben Simmons doesn't want to come back to Philly, wants to trade, preferably to a California team. But earlier in the week, miraculously, Ben Simmons showed up at the team facility, much to the surprise of many of the officials. So now, my personal opinion is that Philadelphia started holding some of his money in escrow and started fining him $318,000 per preseason game that he missed. So that money wasn't flowing the way that he anticipated, and he was probably like, "Oh shoot, I got a mortgage to pay. Let me go ahead and make an appearance, at this team facility. I might not play still, but I'm gonna go ahead and go to the facility." So I feel like that's part of the reason why he showed up miraculously. But the reports are that his agent Rich Paul has been kind of talking back and forth with the team, trying to get to some sort of resolution. But Adrian Wojnarowski, ESPN analyst, reported that, Simmons, like I said, surprised team officials by showing up. And Doc came out and said, hey, like, we're working towards, a resolution. Obviously we want Ben to play, and we're working towards a resolution. But this was definitely an unexpected twist in this story. I didn't think Ben Simmons was going to come back for the Philadelphia 76ers at all. I did not see that happening. So that was a bit of a surprise. So I thought he would be traded by now, so Philly could kind of move on and go forward with their season without this being a distraction. But obviously, it's been a huge distraction. But if he plays for Philly again, I definitely think this will be, just him trying to increase his trading value, which understandably so. Philadelphia doesn't want to get pennies on the dollar for, he is an all-star. He has his flaws in his game. He finished second in Defensive Player of the Year voting last year, first team all-defense. So, Ben Simmons is still a star in the NBA, just, with some issues that, hopefully, he's 24? Hopefully he decides to, work those out. But I definitely think his days are still numbered in Philadelphia, and that he will end up being traded before the trade deadline in February. So, Ben Simmons, best of luck to you, man. Hopefully the Philly faithful will not be too hard on you. But they booed Santa Claus, so we'll see about that. But some other stories, let's transition. Some other stories of the summer was Damian Lillard and the Blazers. So what happened with Dame Dollar and the Blazers? So the team had an underwhelming season. Last year they finished 6th in the West, got beat in the first round by the Denver Nuggets, finishing with a record of 42-30. So run of the mill, not terrible, but not great either. Like I said, bounced in the first round. Reports were after that first round exit was that Dame was unhappy and was considering a change of scenery for Portland. So during free agency, Portland made some changes. They kept their core intact. They kept Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, and Yusuf Nurkic. So, they're kind of big three, or their core three guys they kept. But they added Larry Nance, Cody Zeller, and Ben McLemore, while losing out on Carmelo Anthony and Enes Kanter. So this didn't really improve the Blazers at all. Like, they're still, in my opinion, not a realistic contender in the Western Conference, like with all the teams that I mentioned earlier in the show. This still kind of makes them mediocre. The roster is, you could even argue that the roster's almost worse than what it was last year. So I don't see how this entices Damian Lillard to stay. But the one silver lining that the Blazers do have is that they have a brand new coach. They hired Chauncey Billups to be the new head coach in Portland. And I think this was an exciting coaching hire. Chauncey Billups has been an assistant for the Clippers for a while. And I think he'll do well. I really think he'll do well with the roster that, that he's given. I definitely feel as if Chauncey Billups is a player's coach. All the reports that came out from Clippers players is that, Chauncey Billups was a player's coach, knows how to relate to players, obviously, being a championship point guard and winning a finals MVP as well in 2004 with the Detroit Pistons. So I'm optimistic in terms of the coaching, not so optimistic in terms of the roster that the Portland brass is able to put around Damian Lillard. So the question remains, like, how long will Damian Lillard settle for being mediocre? Will the Chauncey Billups hiring, make Damian Lillard want to stay and re-up long term? Or is this just like a, hey, like, kind of putting a Band-Aid over, a hole in the wall, like, about how long Damian Lillard wants to be there? Because, I mean, they've been to one Western Conference Finals. They went in 2019, ended up losing to the Warriors, and I believe it was a relatively short series, if I'm not mistaken. But he just turned 31 in July, so not getting any younger, still in the prime of his career. But like I said, how long is Damian Lillard going to want to settle for mediocre? I think he's got that kind of mentality, like, that grind mentality where he's like, hey, like, I want to do it, for the team that drafted me. I want to be here for my career, kind of similar to the mentality that Giannis Antetokounmpo has. But I don't see it. I don't see him staying there long term, especially with the roster that they built. So hopefully something happens that'll improve that situation, but we'll see. But last story that I want to get into that is a little controversial. There's a lot. It's a lot of meat on this one. But we've got to talk about Kyrie Irving. So let's just jump right in. Like, Kyrie Irving has decided to not take the vaccine. He has said that he is neither anti-vax nor pro-vaccine, but Kyrie Irving has decided not to take the vaccine, which for one, that is his choice. He makes that decision, and I respect that. That is his personal decision, and he feels that's best for him. Cool. Like, no one's forcing you to take, the vaccine. But what I don't care for is when people make the choice, and this is just now, not with the vaccine, but when people make the choice to do certain things, and then they're not happy about the consequence. This is Kyrie Irving's choice to not take the vaccine, but New York City has a mandate that basically states that players who are going to practice and play games indoors in New York City have to be vaccinated. If you're not, you can't play, practice indoors, can't play games indoors. And NBA COVID protocol basically says that for a player who is unvaccinated who has to miss games due to a city mandate, they don't have to pay him. So I don't think it's a matter of, look what they're doing to Kyrie and all this stuff. I think it's a matter of, hey, dude, like, this is the choice that you made. Like, you made this choice. So you made your bed, now you got to lie in it, as the old saying goes. So, I mean, the team doesn't have to pay you. The NBA doesn't have to pay you. So Kyrie Irving could potentially miss out on about $318,000 per game, up to about $16 million for the season for the missed home games. So reportedly, Kyrie's stance is, he's standing up for people who have lost jobs for, during their mandate, or, that have mandated mandatory vaccines for, different workplaces. So he's standing up for those people. Cool. That's fine. I mean, you have every right to do so, but he went on Instagram Live. What was this? If you're listening to this Friday, this was Wednesday. He went on Instagram Live, and I personally feel like I watched a few clips of it. He didn't really say a whole lot. He used a lot of words, but didn't say much, if you know what I mean. So the whole thing seems a bit bizarre to me. But his, stance, like I said, standing up, being a voice for the people who are voiceless, which that's a whole story for another day too, because everyone kind of has a voice now. But anyway, the Nets made a choice that Kyrie can't come back to the team until he can be a full participant. So that either means that New York City laxes or changes their mandate, or Kyrie Irving takes the vaccine, which it looks like neither is going to happen anytime soon. So there's no idea how long this is going to go on. But Wednesday, another report dropped this past Wednesday from Shams Charania, if I'm saying his name correctly, analyst and reporter from The Athletic. It confirmed that Kyrie will not be offered the $186 million extension from Brooklyn. Now think about that for a second. $186 million that Brooklyn's like, nah, we're not going to offer that. And how can you blame them? So now Kyrie Irving like I said, his personal choice not to take the vaccine, but he has had multiple instances of where it seems as if his focus wasn't on basketball. And sure, everybody has things, outside of their job. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for player empowerment and doing things that you want to do. But it seems it's interesting to me that now the Nets have pulled this $186 million contract extension from the table. And Kyrie Irving said it's not about money, but you only get so much time as a player in any professional sport to make that kind of money. $186 million is generational wealth for him, his family, his kids, and his kids' kids. It's baffling to me that we're in the situation that we're in, specifically when it comes to, vaccine mandates and all that stuff. So the Nets were the favorite. And now without Kyrie Irving, obviously they're better with Kyrie Irving. Don't get me wrong. I don't want that to be misunderstood. But without Kyrie Irving, I would say they're still a slight favorite in the Eastern Conference, but Kyrie Irving just puts them, I feel like, miles ahead of the competition. So I'm curious to hear what Kevin Durant and James Harden actually feel about this whole thing, because Kyrie played a role in getting them both to come to Brooklyn. And now you're not going to play. So we'll see how this situation works out. There's a lot of uncertainty with it. There's a lot of uncertainty going into the season with this Brooklyn Nets team. So no Kyrie. Like I said, Brooklyn is probably still, I would put them just a little bit further ahead, but we'll see what happens. I am looking forward to it. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the show I have for you on this season 2 premiere of another turnover. If you could do me a favor, all the good stuff. If you could share, subscribe. In addition to subscribing on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, subscribe on YouTube. I would love it and I would appreciate you. But I will see you Tuesday for episode 2 of season 2. We're going to talk about some preview stuff going on with the NBA season. I'll make a few predictions that'll probably end up being wrong, but it's fine. It's all good. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one.
I'm in the big leagues, told him don't miss me. Ballin' like Houston, ayy, feeling like Whitney. I need a bag, bruh, send it through quickly. I'm making his dog, like I'm in the big leagues. Told him that I gotta go, dog. I'm riding the road, y'all. I think that I'm back in my bag now. So I need that go, y'all. Got hits when he throwing the